Okay. Yes, student. I welcome all of you again for the fifth lecture of ES 501. We have studied the Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule. Do you remember the Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule? That according to Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule, the value of each phase integral Pi dqi is an integral multiple of Planck constant h. So this is the well-known Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule. That according to Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule, the value of each phase integral, according to Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule, the value of each phase integration of Pi dqi must be an integral multiple of Planck constant h. Okay, you know very well this Pi are the momentum coordinates of the particle. This Qi are the position coordinates of the particle. So Pi are the momentum coordinates of the particle, periodic motion of the particle, and Qi is the position coordinate of the particle. So this is the Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule. Value of each phase integral Pi dqi must be an integral multiple of Planck constant h. This Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule can be applied successfully to a number of periodic systems. We applied this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule to two periodic systems. Number one, particle moving in a one-dimensional box of length L. By applying this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule to a particle moving in a one-dimensional box of length L, we have derived the energy of particle moving in a one-dimensional box is n square s square upon 8 ml square. Okay. This we have derived in the third lecture, that by applying the Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule to the motion of a particle confined in a one-dimensional box of length L, we have derived the energy of a particle moving in a one-dimensional box is n square s square upon 8 ml square. N is an integer number. You can take 1, 2, 3. This denotes the different states of the particle. S is the Planck constant, m is the mass of particle, L is the length of the box. Second example we have taken, that is a simple harmonic oscillator, one-dimensional simple harmonic oscillator. So simple harmonic oscillator is also a periodic system, and we have applied this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule to the periodic motion of simple harmonic oscillator. We have derived the energy of simple harmonic oscillator is nhν. So we have discussed two examples of periodic system and successfully applied this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule to the motion of a particle confined in the one-dimensional box of length L. We got the energy of a particle in the one-dimensional box of length L is n square s square upon 8 ml square. And we have also applied this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantization rule to the periodic motion of simple harmonic oscillator. We got the energy of the harmonic oscillator is nhν. We also mentioned that in the level 1 the energy of the oscillator is hν. Energy level 2 the energy of the oscillator will be 2hν. In level 3 the energy of the oscillator is 3hν. So the energy levels of the harmonic oscillator are discrete, having energy hq, hν, 2hν, 3hν, and the separation between two successive energy level is hν, that is constant. So we have made the conclusion that energy level, discrete energy level of harmonic oscillator are equally spaced, having a constant spacing hν. Okay, and we have also drawn the phase diagram of harmonic oscillator. The phase diagram of harmonic oscillator is nothing but a ellipse. with semi-major axis A and semi-minor axis B. So this thing we have discussed in previous lecture. Today, in this lecture, we are going to apply this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule to the motion of electron in a hydrogen atom, because the motion of electron in a hydrogen atom is the periodic motion. So today, we are going to apply this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule to the periodic motion of electron in a hydrogen atom. We will obtain the energy of electron in a hydrogen atom. We will also obtain the angular momentum of the electron. We will also draw the different orbits of the electron using this Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule. Okay. So now our next theory is Bohr-Sommerfeld model. Bracket elliptical orbits of electron. So in this lecture, Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule, we are going to discuss the different elliptical orbits of the electron using Wilson-Sommerfeld model. Now, what is Wilson-Sommerfeld model? Okay, and how do you identify the different elliptical orbits of the electron in this model? Okay, let us start with the limitations of the Bohr model. Why we have to consider the elliptical orbit? Actually, in Bohr atomic model, the orbit were circular. Okay, so first of all, we discuss the limitation of Bohr model, and then we will move to the Sommerfeld model of elliptical orbits. So first of all, let us discuss the limitations of Bohr. We discuss the limitation of Bohr atomic model. As you know that Bohr has assumed the first limitation is the circular orbit of the electron around the nucleus having radius r. Okay, so in Bohr atomic model of hydrogen atom, the Bohr assumed that electron could move in a circular orbit only. Okay, why not elliptical orbit? Why not parabolic? Why not rectangular motion? Why not square motion? Okay, so in the Bohr atomic model of hydrogen atom, Bohr has assumed, it is arbitrary assumption, the circular motion of electron around the nucleus. So in the Bohr's atomic model of hydrogen atom, Bohr assumed that electron could move in circular orbit only. That assumption was totally arbitrary. Okay, electron can also move in elliptical orbits also. Electron can move in elliptical orbit also. Next, so this is the first limitation that you know. The second limitation we are going to discuss is that if you know very well in a hydrogen atom, you are getting the spectral lines like H alpha line, H beta line, H gamma, H delta, and it goes up to H infinite. Okay, so in Bohr atomic model, you are getting the spectral lines. This series is known as Balmer series. In Balmer series, we get different spectral lines. Okay, the first line is called H alpha line, second line is called H beta, third is H gamma, H delta, and so on. Okay, now if you see this spectral line of hydrogen atom with a spectrometer of high resolving power, it is found that these lines are made up of a number of closed lines. H alpha line is not a single line. It is made up of number of closed lines. closed lines, and this is known as the fine structure of hydrogen atom. This is called fine structure of H atom. Fine structure of H atom. So what is the fine structure of hydrogen atom? The fine structure of hydrogen atom is that if you observe the spectral line under high resolution with a spectrometer of high resolution power, it is found that H alpha or H beta is not a single line. It is made up of a number of closed lines, right? This is called fine structure of hydrogen atom. This fine structure of hydrogen atom cannot be explained by Bohr atomic model, and therefore Sommerfeld assumed that the orbit of the electron is not circular, but Sommerfeld assumed the elliptical orbit of the electron. So that I write here, fine structure of hydrogen atom is a splitting of spectral line into. So what is the fine structure of hydrogen atom that I am writing? Fine structure of hydrogen atom is a splitting of spectral line into several close but distinct components. If you observe H alpha line under high resolution, it is observed that H alpha line is not a single line. It is split into a number of closed lines. It is split into a number of closed lines. So this is for the fine structure of hydrogen atom. Fine structure of hydrogen atom means fine structure of hydrogen atom is a splitting of spectral line like H alpha H beta into a several closed lines, but all these lines are distinct. It means that the energy level of hydrogen atom is also split into several levels. Okay, so this fine structure of hydrogen atom, in which a single H alpha line is split into several closed lines, cannot be explained on the basis of Bohr atomic model, and that is why Bohr, this is the main limitation of Bohr atomic model. The fine structure of hydrogen atom, that the splitting by this H alpha line is split into several lines, cannot be explained on the basis of Bohr atomic model. So Bohr atomic model could not explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom. That why a single H alpha line is split into several closed lines. Okay, and to explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom, Sommerfeld assumed the elliptical orbits of the electron. The third limitation you also know that the intensity of the spectral line can not be explained on the basis of Bohr atomic model. So Bohr atomic model could not explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom. Similarly, the intensity of spectral line is different, and the intensity of spectral line cannot be explained on the basis of Bohr atomic model. So let us now try to explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom. In order to explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom, by a single spectral line splits into so many lines. Okay, Sommerfeld assumed the elliptical orbit of the electron. So Sommerfeld in 1916, in an attempt to explain fine structure of hydrogen atom, Sommerfeld tried to explain a single spectral line splits into a number of several closed lines. Sommerfeld in 1916, in an attempt to explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom, extended Bohr model by assuming that electron could move that electron could move in elliptical orbit of electron could move in elliptical orbits also. So Sommerfeld in 1916, Sommerfeld in 1916 in an attempt to explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom that by a single H alpha line splits into several closed lines, he extended the Bohr atomic model by assuming that electron is not moving in a circular orbit, but electron could move in a elliptical orbit also. Okay. This is called so Sommerfeld assumed the elliptical orbit of the electron instead of circular orbit. Sommerfeld assumed the elliptical orbit of the electron to explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom. Okay, so let us consider elliptical orbit of the electron. Let us consider the elliptical orbit of the electron. As you know, that ellipse has two axes, major axis and minor axis. The longer axis of the ellipse is called major axis. Longer axis of the ellipse is called major axis, and the length of the major axis is 2a. The shorter axis of the ellipse is called minor axis. Shorter axis is called the minor axis, and the length of the minor axis is 2b. Okay, so if the total length of the major axis is 2a, then a is called semi-major axis. A is called semi-major axis of the ellipse. A is semi-major axis of the ellipse. It is the half length of the major axis, so it is called semi-major axis, and the total length of the longer axis, major axis, is 2a. Okay. The shorter axis is called minor axis. The length of the minor axis is 2b. Length of the minor axis is 2b. Therefore, the minor axis will be semi-minor axis will be b. So b is semi-minor axis. Semi-minor axis. So A is called semi-major axis, and B is called semi-minor axis. Okay, you know very well that epsilon is called eccentricity of ellipse. So instead of circular orbit, I have shown a elliptical orbit of electron, where this A is the semi-major axis of the ellipse, B is the semi-minor axis of the ellipse. Epsilon is called the eccentricity of the ellipse. You know the relation between eccentricity of the ellipse epsilon, semi-major axis and semi-minor axis. If you don't know, please write down. The relation between eccentricity epsilon and A and B is given by 1 minus epsilon square is equal to B square upon A square. So this is the relation between epsilon, eccentricity of the ellipse epsilon, semi-major axis A and semi-minor axis B. So this is the relation. Okay, next. Okay, now Sommerfeld assumed that the ellipse has two centers. So nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. Nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. Okay. What is the charge of nucleus? Suppose you consider XZA nucleus. It has Z protons. Charge of one proton is E. So charge of Z proton will be Ze. So charge of this nucleus will be plus Z. Okay. So Sommerfeld assumed let us consider the XZA nucleus which has Z protons. Charge of one proton is E. So charge of Z proton will be Z. Okay. An electron is revolving in an elliptical orbit around the nucleus, where nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. Ellipse has two centers, so nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. Okay, let us assume that I write semi minor axis here B. Okay. So Sommerfeld assumed that the elliptical orbit of the electron around the nucleus. He assumed that nucleus is situated at one focus, one center of the ellipse, and electron is revolving in an elliptical orbit around the nucleus. The distance, radial distance of the electron from the nucleus is r. And the radial distance of the electron from the nucleus is r, and angle made by this position vector r with the same minor major axis is phi. Okay. So please try to understand each and every term. That here, what is A is called A. What is this A? Yes. This A. This A is the semi-major axis. A is called semi-major axis of the ellipse. D is called the semi-minor axis of the ellipse. Epsilon is called the eccentricity of the ellipse. The relation between eccentricity and semi-major axis and semi-minor axis is given by 1 minus epsilon square is equal to b square upon a square. So A is the semi-major axis of the ellipse, B is the semi-minor axis of the ellipse, and eccentricity is the epsilon is the eccentricity of the ellipse. Okay, next now. So what Sommerfeld assumed? To explain the fine structure of hydrogen atom, Sommerfeld assumed the elliptical motion of the electron around the nucleus. The nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. Okay. So let us consider motion of electron. Let us consider motion of electron in an elliptical orbit. In an elliptical orbit. So according to Sommerfeld, following Sommerfeld, let us consider the elliptical motion of the electron in an elliptical orbit with nucleus whose charge is plus Z, with nucleus at one focus or one center. Right? This is one of the Kepler law that the planets are moving in an elliptical orbit around the sun. So here we consider the elliptical motion of the electron around the nucleus. So following Sommerfeld, let us assume the motion of electron in an elliptical orbit with nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. So let us consider the elliptical motion of the electron in an elliptical orbit with nucleus is situated at one center. Okay, of the ellipse. Okay, now Sommerfeld assumed that the elliptical orbit of the electron around the nucleus, and nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse. So let us consider the motion of electron in an elliptical orbit instead of circular orbit with nucleus is situated at one center of the ellipse, one focus of the ellipse. The charge of the nucleus, as I told you, it is Z. The radial distance of electron from the nucleus is r. Okay. Now let us see how many coordinates are required. To define the motion of this electron. Okay. Here you are in Cartesian coordinate. You are working with x, y, z. Polar coordinate will be r, theta, phi. So here we are not going to use the Cartesian coordinate. Here we are going to use two polar coordinate r and theta. So by knowing r and phi, you can determine the position of electron at any instant of time. As for example, if electron is here, if electron is at this position, what is the distance of electron from the nucleus? That r is maximum. We do not know the maximum value of, because till now we have not determined the elliptical orbit. But when electron is here, the distance of electron from the nucleus is maximum, and angle phi will be 0. Okay, so by knowing that r is equal to maximum and phi is 0, you can say that the position of electron is here. When electron completes half rotation and comes here, okay, it comes closer to the nucleus, so the distance of electron from the nucleus is minimum, and angle phi will be pi. Okay, so when electron completes half rotation and comes here, it comes close to the nucleus, so distance of electron from the nucleus is minimum, and electron has completed half rotation, so angle phi will be pi. If electron completes one rotation and comes here, again R becomes maximum and phi will be 2 pi. When electron completes one rotation and come back to the initial position, again the distance of electron from the nucleus becomes maximum and angle phi will be 2 pi. It means that, what does this mean? That the instantaneous position of electron can be determined with the help of two coordinate r and phi. By knowing r and phi, you can determine the position of electron at any instant of time. So that I also write the instantaneous position of electron can be described at any time. The instantaneous position of electron can be described in terms of two polar coordinates r and phi. So if you know r and phi, you can describe the position of electron at any instant of time. So by knowing r and phi, we can define the instantaneous position of electron at any instant of time. I have given the example also that if the position of electron is here, the distance of electron from the nucleus is maximum, angle phi will be 0. When electron completes half rotation and comes close to the nucleus, then r will be minimum and angle phi will be pi. When electron completes one rotation, then again the distance of electron from the nucleus becomes maximum and angle phi will be 2 pi. So by knowing r and phi, you can determine the instantaneous position of electron. So instantaneous position of electron at any instant of time can be defined with the help of two polar coordinates r and phi. If you know r and phi, you can describe the position of electron at any time. Okay, it means that in order to describe the elliptical motion of electron in elliptical orbit, we have two coordinates r and phi. Okay, so by knowing two polar coordinates r and phi, the instantaneous position, the position of electron at any instant can be defined. So here our two coordinates are these. One coordinate is r and second coordinate is phi. One coordinate is r and another coordinate is phi. Okay, by knowing two polar coordinates r and phi, you can define the position of electron at any instant. Okay, so for example, I have given you the example also that at this position the distance of electron from the nucleus is maximum, angle phi is 0. When electron completes half rotation, r is minimum, angle phi will be pi. Okay, when electron completes one rotation, then again r, distance of electron from the nucleus is maximum, angle phi will be 2 pi. Okay, this thing you know. Now, so we require two coordinates. R and phi. Instead of Cartesian coordinate x, y, z, here we are using polar coordinates r and phi. Okay, so we are not using Cartesian coordinate here. We are using polar coordinates r and phi. Now, corresponding to our coordinate, the momentum of the electron will be pr. Corresponding to our coordinate, the momentum of the electron is pr. Now, what is the momentum of electron? That we know, that is mass into velocity. Where m is the mass of the electron, b is the velocity of the electron. Now, what is velocity of the electron? It is dr by dt. And this dr by dt is denoted by r dot. So I write mr dot. Okay. So the first coordinate, position coordinate q1 is r instead of x, and the corresponding momentum of the electron corresponding to our coordinate is PR. The linear momentum of the electron you know very well. The linear momentum of the electron is mv, where m is the mass of the electron, m is the mass of electron, and velocity of the electron is dr by dt. dr by dt is denoted by r dot. Right. Now, second coordinate is, so this r is called radial coordinate, this phi is called angular coordinate. Corresponding to phi coordinate, the angular momentum of the electron will be p phi. Now you know the equation of linear momentum is mass into velocity. So equation of angular momentum will be mass is replaced by I and linear velocity is replaced by omega. So corresponding to angular coordinate phi, the angular momentum of the electron is p phi. The linear momentum is mv, but the angular momentum is I omega, where mass is replaced by moment of inertia I and linear velocity is replaced by angular velocity omega. Now what is I? Moment of inertia is mr square. And what is the angular velocity? You have studied in 11th 12th standard. The angular velocity is defined as d phi by dt. Angular velocity is defined by d phi by dt. This d phi by dt is called phi dot. So mr square d phi by dt is denoted by phi dot. Okay. So I have written two coordinates to define the motion of electron. One coordinate is r. Corresponding to radial coordinate, the momentum of the electron is PR. Corresponding to r coordinate, the momentum of the electron is PR. The momentum of the electron is defined by mass into velocity. M is the mass of electron, velocity of the electron is dr by dt denoted by r dot. Okay. Corresponding to angular coordinate phi, the angular momentum of the electron is p phi. The angular momentum of the electron is defined by I omega instead of mv, where m is replaced by I and v is replaced by omega. I is nothing but it is mr square, and angular velocity omega is defined by d phi by dt, that is denoted by phi dot. Okay. Now we take the phase integral for two coordinates. You know, for x coordinate you are writing the phase integral as px dx. So here we want to write the phase integral for r coordinate and phi coordinate. Okay. What is the phase integral? Pi dqi, and according to Wilson-Sommerfeld quantum rule, this phase integral must be an integral multiple of Planck constant h. So how to write the phase integral for r coordinate? For r coordinate, the phase integral will be integration of, instead of pi, I have to write the momentum pr. Instead of position coordinate x, I have to write the position coordinate r. Dr is equal to nrh. So this is the phase integral for r coordinate. Similarly, you can write down the phase integral for phi coordinate. The phase integral for phi coordinate will be integration p phi d phi is equal to n phi h. This nr is called radial quantum number. This n phi is called azimuthal quantum number. It is denoted by e. Once again I repeat, nr is called radial quantum number, and this n phi is called azimuthal quantum number denoted by k. Okay, so now this is clear to you that the instantaneous position of electron at any instant of time, the position of electron is defined by two polar coordinate. q1 is equal to r and q2 is equal to phi. Corresponding to radial coordinate, the radial momentum of the electron is pr, which is mv or mr dot. And corresponding to the angular coordinate phi, the angular momentum of the electron is p phi, which is I omega or mr square phi dot. The phase integral for r coordinate is integral pr dr is equal to nrh, where nr is called the radial quantum number, and corresponding to phi coordinate, the phase integral is p phi d phi is equal to n phi h, where n phi is called azimuthal quantum number denoted by k. Now, here we have 3 or 4 steps, so we go step by step so you can easily understand. First of all, we obtain the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of the electron. So give the tracker. Let us obtain the differential equation differential equation for, let us obtain the differential equation for elliptical orbit of electron. Let us obtain the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of the electron. Okay. Now, let us try to obtain the differential equation for elliptical orbit of the electron, because we are going to obtain the energy of electron moving in the elliptical orbit. We are going to obtain the angular momentum of the electron moving in the elliptical orbit, and then we will determine the different elliptical orbit of the electron. So for that, the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of electron is a must. Okay. So first of all, we calculate total energy of the system. Now total energy of the system is defined as kinetic energy plus potential. So total energy of the electron, total energy of the electron moving in the elliptical orbit around the nucleus is defined as the sum of kinetic energy and potential. So total energy of the electron is equal to, now electron has two kinetic energy. One kinetic energy is corresponding to r coordinate, that is half mv square, plus the other kinetic energy due to the angular motion of the electron, that is half I omega square. So electron has two kinetic energy corresponding to radial coordinate are, the linear kinetic energy of the electron is half mv square, whereas the mass of electron is the linear velocity of the electron. So corresponding to r coordinate, the linear kinetic energy of the electron is half mv square, and corresponding to angular coordinate phi, the rotational kinetic energy of the electron is half I omega square, where m is replaced by I and v is replaced by omega square. Now what is the potential energy? You know very well. That here is the nucleus, its charge is plus Ze. Here is the electron, whose charge is minus E, and the distance between nucleus and electron is r. If the charge of nucleus is Ze, charge of electron is minus E, and the distance between nucleus and electron is r, what is the potential energy of this system? So potential energy you have studied, it is defined as Q1 Q2 upon r. Potential energy is defined as Q1 Q2 upon r. What is Q1? Q1 is the charge of nucleus, it is plus Z, plus Z. What is Q2? Charge of electron, it is minus E. And what is R? It is the distance between nucleus and electron, that is R. Okay? So potential energy of electron is defined by Q1 Q2 upon R. Q1 potential energy of the electron is defined by Q1 Q2 upon R, but Q1 is the charge of nucleus, it is plus Z. Q2 is the charge of electron, it is minus E, and the distance separation between nucleus and electron is R. So the potential energy comes out to be minus Z square upon R. Potential energy comes out to be minus Z square upon R. Let us put this value here. So potential energy is minus Z square upon R. Potential energy is minus Z square upon R. Okay. Now, just a minute. Okay. Now you know very well that this V is the linear velocity of the electron, and linear velocity of the electron V is defined by dr by dt denoted by r dot. So linear velocity of the electron is dr by dt denoted by r dot. So instead of v square I write r dot square plus. So linear velocity of the electron is dr by dt, that is r dot. So instead of v square I write r dot square plus 1 by 2. The moment of inertia of the electron is mr square. Moment of inertia is mr square. Omega is the angular velocity of the electron defined by d phi by dt and denoted by phi dot. So instead of phi omega square I write phi dot square. And the potential energy is minus z square upon r. Potential energy is minus z square upon r. Now in this equation, I have substituted V is equal to dr by dt, that is r dot square, and omega is equal to d phi by dt, angular velocity, that is phi dot square. Okay. Now in this equation, if you put the values of r dot and phi dot, if you put the values of r dot and phi dot, you will get the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of the electron. Okay. So let us put the value of r dot and phi dot. If you put the values of r dot and phi dot in this equation, you will get the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of electron. Now you know very well that the angular momentum of the electron p phi, I have written here, corresponding to angular coordinate phi, the angular momentum of the electron p phi is I omega, whereas the moment of inertia mr square and omega is d phi by dt, that is phi dot. So from this equation, the angular momentum of the electron corresponding to angular coordinate phi, the angular momentum of the electron p phi is I omega, whereas the moment of inertia defined by mr square and omega is the angular velocity of the electron, which is d phi by dt or phi dot. So from this you will get the value of phi dot comes p phi upon mr square. The value of phi dot comes p phi upon mr square. So you can put this value of phi dot here. Second, we also want to put the value of r dot. Now what is r dot? R dot is nothing but dr by dt. We want to put the value of r dot. Now what is r dot? R dot is nothing but it is dr by dt. R dot is nothing but it is dr by dt. Now this dr by dt can be written as dr by d phi into d phi by dt, right? The r dot is dr by dt. This dr by dt can be written as dr by d phi into d phi by dt. Now what is this d phi by dt? This d phi by dt is nothing but phi dot. This d phi by dt is nothing but phi dot. D phi by dt is denoted by phi dot. And what is phi dot? Phi dot, the value of phi dot is p phi upon mr square. So I put that value here. The value of phi dot, d phi by dt is phi dot, and value of phi dot from equation 1 is p phi upon mr square. Okay, if you put these two values of r dot and phi dot, you will get the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of the electron. So let us put the values of r dot in the first term and phi dot in the second term. So total energy of the system is equal to 1 by 2 m. Let us put the value of r dot first. The value of r dot is this, p phi upon mr square, into dr by d phi whole square plus 1 by 2 mr square. So in the first term I have substituted the value of r dot is equal to dr by d phi into p phi by mr square whole square. In the second term is 1 by 2 mr square, okay, phi dot square. So in the second term, let us put the value of phi dot. What is the value of phi dot? P phi upon mr square. P phi upon mr square. So what will be the square of p phi upon mr square? P phi square upon m square r4 minus z square upon r minus z square upon r. So I have substituted the value of r dot in the first term and value of phi dot in the second term. If you simplify this equation, you will get the differential equation for the elliptical motion of the electron. So E is equal to 1 by 2 and let us take the square of this. So the square of this will be p phi square upon m square r raised to 4 dr by d phi whole square, dr by d phi whole square. Second term will be p phi square upon 2 1 mr square is cancelled, mr square upon m square r 4 will be mr square minus z square upon r. So this is the equation of total energy in terms of p phi. What is p phi? It is the angular momentum of the electron corresponding to phi point. So the total energy of the electron in terms of angular momentum of the electron is 1 by 2m p phi upon mr square will be p phi square upon m square r4 dr by d phi whole square plus here 1 mr square is cancelled, so p phi square upon 2 mr square minus z square upon r. Now if you multiply this equation by 2 mr square upon p phi square, if you multiply this equation with 2 mr square upon p phi square, what do you get? Okay, so I multiply left hand side with 2 mr square upon p phi square, 2 mr square upon p phi square into E is equal to. So let us multiply both sides of this equation with 2 mr square upon p phi square. We get 2 mr square upon p phi square multiplied with E. Here 1 by 2m p phi square upon m square r4 dr by d phi whole square. This first term is also multiplied with 2 mr square upon p phi square. 2 mr square upon p phi square. Plus the middle term is p phi square upon 2 mr square. This middle term is also multiplied with 2 mr square upon p phi square. 2 mr square upon p phi square. And last one is minus z square upon r. We also multiply the last term with 2 mr square upon p phi square. Okay, so I have multiplied both sides of this equation with 2 mr square upon p phi square. Okay, now you can simplify this equation. This p phi square, 2 mr square is cancelled, so middle term will be 1. Okay, so now if you simplify this equation, you will get 2 me upon p phi square into r square is equal to, okay, if you simplify this, you will get 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square. Okay, this simplification is very simple. If you simplify this, you will get 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square plus the middle term will be 1 and last term will be 2 m z square upon p phi square into r. Because here 1r is going to cancel. Okay? So we will get this equation. So final equation I can write like this. So final equation will be 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square is equal to 2me upon p phi square into r square. This minus term, when you take on that side, it will become plus 2m z square upon p phi square into r. And then plus when you take on left side, it becomes minus. Okay. So this is the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of the electron. You can see in the first term we have the order of r is 2, in the second order of r is 1, and the last term is cos 2. So this is the differential equation. What is this? This is the differential equation for elliptical orbit of electron. Okay. So from the equation of total energy, we have derived the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of electron moving around the nucleus. Is 1 upon r dr by d phi is equal to 2me upon p phi square into r square plus 2m z square upon p phi square into r minus 1. So this is the differential equation for the elliptical orbit of the electron moving around the nucleus. Okay. Second step. Okay. Discuss the second step and then we will stop. Okay. To evaluate axis. Axis of ellipse orbit. In order to find out the semi-major axis A of the ellipse and semi-minor axis B of the ellipse, so to evaluate the semi-major axis A of the elliptical orbit and semi-minor axis B of the elliptical orbit, we use polar equation of ellipse. Polar equation of an ellipse. You know the equation of ellipse in Cartesian coordinates. What is the equation of ellipse in Cartesian coordinate? It is x square upon x square plus y square upon b square is equal to 1. So this is the equation of ellipse in Cartesian coordinates. X square upon x square plus y square upon b square is equal to 1. Similarly, in polar coordinate, the equation of ellipse is written as equation of ellipse is written as 1 upon r is equal to 1 minus epsilon cos phi upon a 1 minus epsilon square. This is the polar equation of an ellipse. So I have written both the equation in Cartesian coordinates. The equation of ellipse in Cartesian coordinate is x square upon x square plus y square upon b square is equal to 1. In polar coordinate, the equation of ellipse is 1 upon r is equal to 1 minus epsilon cos phi upon a 1 minus epsilon square. Now here, you know what is r? R is the radial distance of electron from the nucleus. What is epsilon? Epsilon is called the eccentricity of the ellipse. Epsilon is the eccentricity of the ellipse. Phi angle, you know two coordinate very well. R coordinate and phi coordinate. Epsilon is the eccentricity of the ellipse. A is the semi-major axis of the ellipse. Again, epsilon is the eccentricity of the ellipse. If you differentiate this equation with respect to phi, what you get? If you differentiate this equation with respect to phi, you will get the derivative of 1 upon r. With respect to r is minus 1 upon r square. But we are differentiating with respect to phi, so derivative of r will be dr by d phi. Here 1 is constant, so derivative is 0, minus epsilon. Derivative of cos phi will be minus sin phi. This a1 minus epsilon square is cos phi. So let us take the logarithmic differentiation of r with respect to phi. The derivative of 1 upon r with respect to r is minus 1 upon r square, and derivative of r with respect to phi is dr by d phi. So derivative of 1 is 0, minus epsilon, derivative of cos phi is minus sin phi upon a 1 minus epsilon square. Okay. Now from this equation, what is the value of a1 minus epsilon square? a1 minus epsilon square is equal to, you can write r into 1 minus epsilon cos phi. From this equation, the value of a into 1 minus epsilon square is r into 1 minus epsilon cos phi. Let us put this value here. So the equation will become minus 1 upon r square dr by d phi is equal to minus minus plus epsilon phi minus minus plus epsilon sin phi upon the value of a into 1 minus epsilon square is r into 1 minus epsilon cos phi. Value of a into 1 minus epsilon square is r into 1 minus epsilon cos phi. 1 r is cancelled from both the sides. You can cancel 1 r from both the sides. If you take the square of this equation, squaring on both the sides, squaring on both sides, we get 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square is equal to, the square of this is epsilon square sin square phi upon 1 minus epsilon cos phi whole square. Okay. So you will get the another differential equation, 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square is equal to epsilon square sin square phi upon 1 minus epsilon cos phi whole square. In this equation, if you put the value of epsilon sin phi and epsilon cos phi, you will get 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square is equal to minus 1 upon a square 1 minus epsilon square into r square plus 2r plus 2 upon a 1 minus epsilon square into r minus 1. This thing I am not going to do. You can try yourself. You obtain the value of epsilon sin phi, substitute here. Also obtain the value of epsilon cos phi and substitute here. You will get, and then simplify. You get the second differential equation, 1 upon r dr by d phi whole square is equal to minus 1 upon a square 1 minus epsilon square r square plus 2r upon a 1 minus epsilon square minus 1. Okay. Next lecture we will compare both the equation. We will compare the coefficient of r square. See. We will compare here in this equation coefficient of r square is 2me upon d phi square. In this equation coefficient of r square is minus 1 upon a square 1 minus epsilon square. If we compare these two, okay, and here in the second term the coefficient of r is 2m z square upon d phi square. Here the coefficient of r is 2a 1 minus epsilon square. If you compare the coefficient of R square of both the difference equation, coefficient of R in these two equation, you will get the energy of electron and you will also get the semi-major axis of the elliptical orbit. That we will take in the next lecture. Thank you very much. Don't time to